Barry Gibb, the youngest of the Bee Gees at 78, still cannot listen to one song without his chest tightening, his eyes welling with memories that time has never dulled. To the world he is a legend, a voice that defined an era, yet behind the flashing lights and roaring crowds there is a man haunted by the notes he helped create. On stage he moves with effortless grace, the audience swept along by decades of hits. But when the applause fades, he is alone with the echo of a song that carries both triumph and heartbreak. It was written in 1978, during nights that stretched into dawn, with his brothers Maurice and Robin, in a studio thick with smoke, sweat, and creative tension. Every chord, every lyric, was stitched from fragments of love, regret, and fleeting joy. Fans hear a timeless melody, but for Barry, it is a mirror reflecting moments of loss, fleeting happiness, and the fragile pulse of life itself. Even now, decades later, he admits it still pierces him, unrelenting. What is it about a song that can break a man who has survived the heights of fame, the loss of loved ones, and a lifetime on stage? The answer lies in the heart behind the music. Barry Gibb was born on January 1, 1946. On the Isle of Man, the youngest of three brothers who would soon become known around the world as the Bee Gees. From the beginning, music was woven into the fabric of his life. Their father Hugh played guitar and sang in local clubs, and their mother Barbara filled the house with lullabies that lingered long after the children had gone to sleep. It was in this mix of lullaby and performance, of family warmth and quiet discipline, that Barry first felt the pulse of melody and the tug of emotion. Even as a boy, he noticed the way a single chord could shift the atmosphere of a room, how a simple lyric could make hearts swell or ache. In the early 1950s, the family moved to Manchester, England, briefly before settling in Australia. Barry and his brothers, Maurice, always steady, and Robin, with a voice as fragile as glass, formed their first small bands, performing at local dances and parties. These early performances were far from glamorous. The stages were wooden floors, the lights harsh and unforgiving, and the applause uncertain. Yet Barry felt something profound each time he sang, a connection to both the audience and to his own inner life. He noticed that music could carry feelings he could not otherwise express, emotions too complex for words alone. By the time the Bee Gees began to gain traction in Australia during the early 1960s, Barry had already internalized an understanding that would stay with him his entire life. The most enduring songs were those that carried fragments of personal truth. They released early singles that caught the attention of local fans, and soon they were performing on radio shows and appearing on television. Barry's voice, with its soaring clarity and emotional nuance, was often described as haunting, and yet for him it was a vessel, a way to release private fears, fleeting joys, and the quiet heartbreaks that punctuated his youth. The seeds of the song that would haunt Barry decades later were planted in these formative years. It was a time of longing, both for recognition and for understanding, moments when a melody could carry the weight of unspoken sorrow. Even in the rush of early success, when audiences clapped and called for encores, Barry sometimes felt an invisible current of vulnerability beneath the surface. He recognized that the music he created would not just be entertainment, it would become a map of emotion, a record of all the joys and sorrows he could not otherwise name. In retrospect, those early experiences, singing in small halls, writing in cramped bedrooms, watching his brothers harmonize effortlessly, were more than preparation for fame. They were the foundation of empathy, the awareness that a song could reach someone's heart as deeply as it reached his own. And so, when the Bee Gees finally began their international rise, Barry carried with him a truth that would endure. The songs that mattered most were the ones that touched the soul, the ones that could bring him to tears even decades later. Even in those first performances, he was learning something subtle yet profound, that music could be both a shield and a mirror. The world might see the smile, the applause, and the glamour, but beneath it all a song could hold memory, loss, hope, and the quiet longing of a boy who first fell in love with music in a small house on the Isle of Man. It was a lesson Barry would carry with him to every studio, every stage, and every song that would later define not just his career but the emotional truths he still carries today. The year was 1978, a pivotal time for Barry Gibb and the Bee Gees. The disco era was in full bloom, the world dancing to rhythms they had helped shape. Yet in the quiet of the studio, the atmosphere was far more complex than the glittering stage lights suggested. Barry, Maurice, and Robin spent long hours crafting melodies and harmonies, voices blending in ways both effortless and painstaking, each note a reflection of years of shared experience. For Barry, these sessions were not just about producing a hit, they were about capturing fragments of life, emotion encoded in every chord. The studio was often a small, windowless room, lit by the harsh glare of fluorescent lights, where time seemed to stretch and bend. Hours could pass unnoticed as they refined every line, every pause, searching for the exact expression of feeling. It was during one of these long nights that the song began to take its definitive shape. Barry's voice, fragile yet commanding, carried more than melody, it carried memory. He would sometimes pause, pen hovering over the paper, lost in a recollection of love, loss, or the unspoken tensions of family life. Maurice's steady presence grounded him, while Robin's ethereal tones added a layer of emotional vulnerability, a counterpoint to Barry's intensity. Recording was an exacting process. They layered voices repeatedly, listening for the perfect blend, the emotional resonance that would reach beyond technical perfection. Producers and engineers noted Barry's meticulousness, his insistence that the song convey truth, not just sound polished. There were moments of quiet frustration, moments when the weight of expectation pressed upon him. Yet in these moments, Barry also felt a profound connection to his brothers, to the music, and to the life experiences that had shaped the lyrics. Each take, each harmony, was an act of excavation, peeling back layers of memory and sentiment that few would ever know existed behind the music. By the time the final recording was complete, the song had become more than a track meant for airplay. It carried a weight that only Barry could fully sense. Every note, every harmony, every pause held fragments of nights spent questioning, remembering, and feeling. He knew, even then, that this song would remain with him differently than any other. It was a vessel for emotion too subtle, too intimate, for the public to grasp entirely. Fans might hear a soaring melody, a catchy refrain, but Barry felt the undercurrent of human fragility threading through it, a current that could stir tears as easily as applause. The irony was never lost on him. A song born in the midst of commercial triumph, created in the heart of an era defined by celebration and dance, could carry such private poignancy. He recognized that fame, with its flashing cameras and roaring audiences, would not diminish the intensity of feeling embedded in the music. Instead, it amplified it, juxtaposing public triumph with private vulnerability. Every studio session, every repeated take, had etched this truth into the very fabric of the song, that music could immortalize both joy and sorrow, that the act of creation could expose the soul even while entertaining the world. Even now, decades later, Barry speaks of those nights in the studio not as work, but as intimate moments of revelation, moments when music revealed as much about him as any conversation or diary ever could. The song, born from hours of labor, brotherly collaboration, and deep personal reflection, would carry its weight through fame, fortune, and time, remaining an emotional touchstone for a man who has lived a life in music, yet has never been shielded from the truth of his own heart. By the time How Deep Is Your Love was released, the world was dancing to its rhythm without knowing the layers of emotion woven into each note. 1978 had already witnessed the Bee Gees dominating charts across the globe, yet this song struck a particular chord, both commercially and personally. Radio stations played it endlessly, fans memorized every line, and critics praised its melodic brilliance. On the surface, it was another triumph, another hit, to cement the Bee Gees' place in music history. Yet for Barry, the exhilaration of public success was intertwined with an undercurrent of private reflection. Charts confirmed its popularity. In the United States, How Deep Is Your Love climbed steadily, eventually reaching top positions on both pop and adult contemporary lists. Internationally, it resonated from London to Sydney, capturing audiences who would hum its melody long after the record stopped spinning. Awards followed, industry recognition stacking atop decades of prior accolades. Maurice and Robin watched with pride, knowing that the harmonies they had labored over so meticulously had reached millions. Barry felt the warmth of accomplishment, but he also felt something more subtle. The song had taken on a life of its own, one that carried pieces of his heart that the world would never fully see. Fans called it timeless, often citing it as a favorite among the Bee Gees' expansive catalog. Interviews from the era show journalists marveling at the song's perfect balance of pop sensibility and emotional depth. Barry's voice, soaring yet tender, conveyed feelings listeners could sense but could not always articulate. Behind the scenes, Barry sometimes wondered if anyone understood the quiet melancholy threaded through How Deep Is Your Love, the echoes of nights spent in the studio wrestling with memory, family, and fleeting moments of joy. Public acclaim did not erase those private truths, it merely highlighted the contrast between the applause and the personal resonance that only he could feel. Even now, decades later, Barry recounts the release with a mixture of pride and lingering vulnerability. He remembers listening to How Deep Is Your Love on the radio in quiet moments, alone in a hotel room or at home, and feeling the familiar tug at his chest. To the public, it was an anthem of the era, a song to dance to and celebrate. For Barry, it remained intimate, a vessel for memories both luminous and heavy, moments of love, loss, and the invisible weight of time. Every note was a reminder that success did not shield him from the emotional gravity embedded in his own creation. Even as How Deep Is Your Love soared across the globe, Barry Gibb's private life was quietly marked by moments of fragility and reflection. Fame had granted him wealth, recognition, and an enduring place in music history, yet it could not soften the personal weight he carried. The song, born in the glow of commercial success, had become a mirror for emotions that fame could not erase. Behind closed doors, in the solitude of his home, or the quiet corners of hotels, he would often replay it, letting each note unlock memories he had tucked away. Barry's family had always been central to his life, yet it was in the late 1970s and early 80s that the pressures of constant travel, recording schedules, and public expectation began to take their toll. Maurice, his steadfast brother and collaborator, provided grounding, but Barry often felt the strain of carrying not just his own emotions, but the collective weight of the Bee Gees' legacy. In interviews years later, he admitted that certain songs, including How Deep Is Your Love, were more than music. They were repositories of longing, regret, and fleeting joy, carrying pieces of his heart that no audience could ever truly know. The very act of performing How Deep Is Your Love could stir unexpected waves of emotion. On stage, he maintained control, delivering the vocals with precision and warmth. Yet in the moments after, alone backstage, the memories returned with unrelenting clarity. The lyrics, the melodies, and the harmonies intertwined with his personal history. The hours in the studio with Maurice and Robin, the late nights of creative tension, the sacrifices made to craft something lasting. These recollections were not mournful in the conventional sense, but they were heavy, a quiet reminder that creation comes with both exhilaration and vulnerability. Tragedy also marked the family's story in subtle ways that added layers to Barry's emotional connection with the song. The early loss of certain opportunities, the fleeting nature of personal moments lost to touring schedules, and the quiet ache of separation from loved ones all became intertwined with the music. Barry's voice, already capable of extraordinary warmth, carried these private truths into every performance, even when the audience only heard melody. The song, celebrated by millions, remained for him a vessel of intimacy, a conduit to moments that were deeply personal, moments that could bring tears decades after the microphones were silenced. Even now, Barry speaks of how deep is your love, with a mixture of reverence and vulnerability. Fame had offered applause, adoration, and financial security, yet it had not dulled the capacity for private emotion. The song's haunting quality lies in its dual existence, a public triumph celebrated around the world, and a deeply personal touchstone, connecting Barry to a version of himself that only he can inhabit. Decades after its creation, How Deep Is Your Love continues to live not just in the charts or on streaming playlists, but in the heart of Barry Gibb. At 78, he reflects on it with a mixture of awe, gratitude, and quiet vulnerability. It has become a cornerstone of his legacy, one that transcends commercial success, awards, and public acclaim. While audiences around the world hear a timeless melody, Barry experiences it as a living chronicle of his own life, an archive of emotion, memory, and intimate truth that persists long after the spotlight has faded. The Bee Gees' performances of How Deep Is Your Love in recent years, whether on televised specials, reunion events, or live concerts, continue to evoke the same mix of exhilaration and reflection. Barry often notes the paradox of performing something so universally loved while privately connecting to moments that remain intensely personal. Each performance becomes an act of remembering, a way to honor the hours spent in dim studios with Maurice and Robin, and the delicate balance of brotherly collaboration, creative tension, and shared vulnerability. The song's enduring popularity also highlights Barry's influence on the wider world of pop music. Its harmonies and melodic phrasing inspired countless artists across generations, a bridge between the Bee Gees era and modern interpretations of rhythm, emotion, and storytelling in music. Yet Barry's reflections remain inward-looking. The accolades are meaningful, but the real resonance lies in what How Deep Is Your Love continues to reveal about his own life. Personal reflection has become central to Barry's relationship with the song in the 21st century. He has spoken candidly in interviews about how it brings him back to early nights of creation, the tension and joy of collaboration, and the quiet sacrifices required to craft music that lasts. In moments of solitude, listening to the melody, he is reminded that art is a vessel for both triumph and tenderness, a means to hold memory, grief, love, and fleeting joy in a single frame. Even now, as he sits reflecting on a lifetime in music, Barry understands that How Deep Is Your Love embodies both pain and redemption. It is a reminder that the hours spent striving for perfection in harmony and lyric, the moments of doubt and exhaustion, and the intimate, private emotions embedded in every note have lasting significance. It is this profound intertwining of personal history and musical expression that ensures the song continues to move him, decades later. Even decades later, How Deep Is Your Love remains more than a song for Barry Gibb. It is a living, breathing archive of memory, carrying every late night in the studio, every sacrifice, every fragile moment shared with Maurice and Robin. To the world, it is timeless harmony, a piece of musical history, a melody sung by millions. To Barry, it is intensely personal, a reminder of love, longing, and the invisible weight of time pressing gently yet insistently against the heart. He has spoken in interviews of the quiet ache it can still bring, the tears that sometimes come unbidden, the haunting realization that no stage, no audience, no standing ovation can capture the private resonance embedded in each note. Fame and accolades have not diminished its power. Instead, they highlight the truth that even amid the brightest spotlights, a song can remain profoundly intimate, a reflection of the self and the years lived within it. For more emotional stories, check out this video.